I need to get to Liz here. Liz has been dying. She's ready. Okay, you ready, Liz?
Yes.
I need Andrew's help here. I'm going to start with your disagreement, then I'll get into some of your other stuff. So,
that might be
you had a disagreement, and it's actually good. I was trying to figure out, and so I'm actually just, Andrew's going to be my champion on this argument, hopefully. So, you said that, hold on.
By the way, it's nice to see you again. Welcome back to whatever.
Nice to see you
again.
too.
You said, I think it is hypocritical, Brian, that you have openly admitted that you're traditional in some ways and degen in others, yet you lay into your female guests for picking and choosing in what ways they would like to be traditional. You say it is not fair that a woman expects you to pay if she's not traditional, yet if you are on a date with a traditional woman, you expect her to sleep with you within the first few dates, and you refuse to marry her. Does this mean that you can pick and choose your values, but the women on your show cannot, and why?
I love that.
So, and it stumped me for a little bit, and actually I came up with this 4-dimensional, just fucking ninja chess response, but we got Andrew here, my champion.
Uh-oh.
And look, I came up with the most smoking gun owned rebuttal to this. But because I'm feeling generous and Andrew's our special guest, I'm just going to get up for a few minutes and let Andrew take it away. Andrew, go ahead.
All right. So first, maybe we can condense the argument here, just so I understand it better. Just in your own words, can you?
Sure.
Can you explain it to me? Yeah.
So, oh gosh, now I have to think about what I said back in April. Okay. Ryan seems to dislike picking and choosing, but then he also picks and choose. Like you can't have both. So you can't have a chaste woman that will sleep with you that same night. Like those two things I don't think are synonymous. That wouldn't make any sense to me. Like where would you find that woman?
Why I don't understand that though. Why couldn't you have a chaste woman sleep with you the same night?
I just don't think that would be the typical personality or the typical choice a chaste woman would make. I think she would want to vet the
Yeah, I mean, I agree that I would think that a woman who valued chastity probably wouldn't sleep with you on the first night, but I don't see why you couldn't have a chaste woman who did.
You could. I just don't think it's likely. So I don't think that you can. Andrew, Brian can come on here and say rightly so that he thinks it's wrong for women to be promiscuous, and then expect promiscuous behavior from those women.
Oh, I see. So you're talking about the homemaker argument.
Yeah.
So the homemaker argument goes something like this, and you tell me if I'm on track here. You men are out there being promiscuous, and the more women you sleep with, the more hoes you're making because you're sleeping with those women. So at the one hand, you have the standard that women should not be promiscuous while you're out there sleeping with women, which, by the way, is the outcome of making them promiscuous, right?
Well, I think women make themselves promiscuous, but...
Well, then I don't know what the argument is then.
I think a woman would make herself promiscuous if she slept with a man on the first night. And if...
Yeah. I don't think that Brian would disagree with that.
But Brian expects women to sleep with him on the first, or even the second date. But that would still more or less be promiscuous behavior. So you can't champion.
So actually, I don't actually see a contradiction here. I think I understand where you see one. So you're seeing the idea that Brian doesn't prefer promiscuous women, but yet wants a woman to sleep with him almost immediately in their dating cycle, right?
Right. I don't.
But what's the contradiction?
Because that in itself, to me, implies promiscuous. That is a promiscuous action that she's taking, and a non-promiscuous.
He could have a virgin that he meets, and she sleeps with him on the second night.
Happens.
He can have a woman that only has a 1 body count or a 2 body count, sleeps with him on the second night. That's not promiscuous at all. I don't actually understand what the contradiction is. So let me put it this way. Let's say my position is, I don't like promiscuous women, but I'm not going to date you unless we're having sex, right? Those two are not mutually exclusive claims. So I can still not value women who are promiscuous and still want women who sleep with me almost immediately. That doesn't mean that they're promiscuous, right?
But who is more likely to sleep with you immediately?
Oh, I would say the promiscuous woman, but so what?
So I
She's a
think,
slut and she knows it.
well, yeah, I knew that already. But I just think in practice it doesn't. It's kind of a confusing double message. Like, it doesn't make sense to me that it seems to be encouraging the very culture that you don't agree with.
I suppose I should jump in here, unless Andrew, you want to champion more.
Yeah, I just want to kind of finish this off. I don't understand how it's actually a contradiction to say I don't value promiscuity in women, right? But then also want to have sex with women early on who are not promiscuous, right? Wouldn't that be like you get the goods first? Like you were the first person who got the orange, right? Before everybody else handled it. Like, isn't that kind of the point?
But we tend to speak on this podcast with generalities. And in general, I would say that a chaste, non-promiscuous virgin, the likelihood of you finding what you want and having her sleep with you on the first date, which I will acknowledge may have happened, but the percent chance of that being likely is very low, in my opinion.
But don't you, well, wait a second. If we're speaking in generalities, then I think that you have the problem here, because wouldn't you agree that what are called, or quote, high status men are often going after the women with the very, very low body counts, and they often get them because they're high status men. And in general, most men are not high status men. And so if they're in the category of, I don't know, having like the second largest IRL podcast on planet Earth, you know, all the entailments which come with that, I'm not sure if it is, but I'm just saying if it is, wouldn't that kind of already make you outside of this kind of general theme of what most men are?
It's a fair
Like,
point.
couldn't you afford to be a little bit more selective and with your
course.
taste? Couldn't you kind of afford to have that kind of caviar taste because you no longer have the beer budget, right?
Of course, but I would expect Brian to live what he says outside of this podcast, and I don't think sleeping with women on the first night is living to the standards that he purports to think are best for society.
Well, it seems like he thinks what's best for society is that women are chaste, right? If women are chaste, then Brian doesn't have a choice, does he?
Well, I think, well, actually, by your standard of what you think we ought to do, Brian wouldn't have a choice. He'd have to marry somebody to have sex.
That's right, he would, wouldn't he?
And also,
So
I
that
would
would
like to point
just
out-
take all that choice right away. Sounds like that would be a positive outcome for society, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think
So it
that-
sounds like if you follow Brian's advice and you're all chaste, right, and women are not giving it up, then it seems like Brian wouldn't have much of an option anyway, right?
correct.
But if the option is available for low body count women and his preference is to sleep with them early on, I still don't actually understand where the contradiction is.
Because I think if he's a man that stands on the principles that he encourages, he should not sleep with a woman.
What
Until he's like-
what do I encourage?
I think you encourage people to, well, now I think you're considering orthodoxy, which would, you're either going to have to choose between being a monk or picking a woman.
Well, I mean, look,
Yeah.
I agree with you that Brian shouldn't be a fucking degenerate and sleep with a bunch of chicks, okay? I agree with that. I agree with that shit. Okay, so that's my one backstab of the evening for my friend, okay? He shouldn't be a degen and sleep with a ton of chicks. I agree with
But
that.
I don't.
Okay?
I
Okay, but he
don't.
doesn't, right? That's true. But I'm just saying he shouldn't do that if that is what he's doing. And I do think that he doesn't value promiscuity in men. But just because he says, you know, maybe he's one of those types of guys that dates many, many, many women until he finds one he's going to have a physical relationship with. And if he expects that to be early on, seems like a reasonable preference. I'm not sure that it's an unreasonable preference.
I suppose it could be a reasonable preference. I just don't think it's a likely preference given his other preferences of what the kind of woman he would prefer. I don't think that that kind of woman overall.
Well, maybe that's why he's not sleeping around, because the preference is unlikely, right? But still available, you know what I mean? Like, there are women with low body counts who may still be available to Brian. He still may prefer to sleep with them early on. There's no actual contradiction there, though I agree from a moral standpoint. Yeah, he shouldn't be a fucking DJ. I agree with that, okay? I agree with that. He shouldn't do the DJ shit. That I agree with.
So I think in your original statement, there's definitely some, perhaps, I don't think you have a full understanding here. So I don't, in terms of expect, I I don't necessarily expect a woman to sleep with me on the first date. But I don't object to it either. Don't object to it either. But also, I'm not interested in like sleeping with 2 new women a week, 3 new women a week. Like here's my thing, right? If I want to sleep with a girl, I want there to be continuity. So if I sleep with a girl, even if it's very early on, I've already made a determination that I want to continue seeing her. There's going to be a continuity absent some like, I sleep with her and then she just like goes full psycho. She would have to do something. Like it wouldn't be on me. Like if I sleep with her and then I'm just going to dip.
But
she would have to like do some crazy shit. Like, I don't know, fucking start crying and like, oh, I miss my husband. I'd be like, oh, you're married. Okay, that's a problem.
Yeah, I can accept that. But
Something crazy like that. But if I choose to sleep with a girl, there's going to be continuity. I'm going to continue seeing her. I've never been interested in these guys who just fuck a girl once and that's it. No, I'm going to continue seeing you.
But even though you're saying that, and I believe you, that she does not necessarily know that. So, and from her perspective, she'd probably want to vet you and be like, oh, is he really going to stick around without the sex first?
Well, then I would ask, what's her standard been for all the previous men she slept with? Because then I'm going to feel like it's unfair treatment.
And I can totally understand that. And I could totally understand that. And I would understand why you wouldn't go for those women. But I think the women you're going for, I think you should make more compromises in that respect. To be willing to wait a little longer for a quality woman that is chaste.
I would be willing to wait. Like, look, you can wait however long you want. It's just going to ultimately be a mismatch in terms of what we're looking for, and it's best we just go our separate ways. You want to wait 3 months? I don't. I'm not interested in, especially if she's had like previous sexual partners and they didn't wait. Now I'm going to feel like a sucker.
Yeah, and I don't
want to be a sucker.
And I would, if I was your like friend and we were just chatting, I would I would say, yeah, do that.
But so, and here's the thing, right? When it comes to like a woman can have a low body count, but otherwise choose, she's like, I like this guy. He's the one I'm interested in pursuing. He seems like he's not. I mean, some women get played for sure. Like the guy will say, oh yeah, I want a long-term relationship, have sex with her and ghost her. That happens. Totally get it. But that's not, at least for me, I mean, that's not what I'm about.
Right.
So like I said, I want there to be a continuity. But when it comes to women not having a high body count, so as a woman, you can, like, I think the bigger indicators of like racking up a high body count wouldn't be necessarily how quick you sleep with a guy. It's what's the context and environment. So, okay, like my recommendation to women, if you want to make sure that this guy's going to stick around, I think it's waiting can certainly help weed out dudes, but also if there's alcohol involved, that's a bad idea. Like that's more likely to lead to, on both ends, like it just being viewed as like a one-time thing or casual. So if there's alcohol involved, you met in a party type environment, so rave, bar, nightclub, etc., not a good venue to meet somebody. If you're traveling, okay, immediately that's created a conflict in terms of, one of the big things is like proximity and convenience to making something work. Not to say that long distance relationships can't work, but if you're in Europe for a week and you fuck a dude, like the chances of that becoming a long-term relationship, very unlikely. Likewise, if you live in a city and some hot European dude's there for a week, you probably shouldn't fuck him. That you just racked up a body. It's not going to be a long-term relationship. Go ahead.
So I will say this, like in the spirit of ultimate good faith, I'm going to concede the argument to you because I think you have the better end of the argument. Perhaps the first L I've taken on the whatever podcast, but I give a full concession.
Oh, God.
Brian.
What?
You gotta stop being a fucking DJ.
I'm not a DJ.
You can't do it, bro. I gotta concede the argument here. She's totally right.
No, but
I can't do it. I gotta concede.
It's not DJing though. It's not DJing. I'm not like trying to fuck. Like I said, I'm not trying to fuck like 3 new girls a week. I'm interested in long-term relationship, but in a long-term relationship, I'm not waiting until marriage.
So by the orthodox standards that you're thinking about, would that
Right,
be
but
No,
degenerate?
no,
I'm
no,
not
no,
there
no,
yet.
don't,
I'm
let's
not there
not go
yet.
into all that.
Okay.
Okay, first, let's not scare Brian off immediately, okay? But the thing is that, okay, I'll make the concession too. If you're, at least if you're moving towards, I think, a long-term relationship when it comes to the physical relationship, that is far better in society than just going around and being a promiscuous, this type of thing. But I can't, man. Like, the concession here is, it's still bad. You shouldn't do it. Right? I mean, that's...
Well, if the ultimate is waiting until marriage, then sure, it's from that worldview, it's bad.
Yeah.
But like, I think the way I move is leaps and bounds. What is it? Leaps and bounds. Thank you, Alicia. Is leaps and bounds less degen than like one of these guys who are saying, I'm gonna fuck three new girls a week. I'm gonna go to the club, fuck a chick within 30 minutes of meeting her. Alcohol is gonna be involved, all this stuff. So I'm not waiting until marriage, but I'm also not trying to like run through every chick, fuck them once, never talk to them again. If I have sex with a girl, I am pursuing that girl for long term. There's no, for me, it's a waste of time. I'm not interested in sleeping with a girl, and it's honestly a liability. I'm not interested in sleeping with a girl once and never talking to her again. Doesn't
Okay.
interest me.
But like for my stepdaughter, for example, how I would advise her, I wouldn't advise her to assume that most men are like you. Unfortunately, I would advise her to assume that most men are like what you discussed. They might, yeah, especially when they're younger. So she's 10 now, so I'm thinking like maybe when she's 10 years from now or so, and she's thinking about this. God, I hope it's 10 years from now. Anyway, I would not advise her to expect that. I wouldn't say that's the typical treatment she's going to find. So I would encourage her to wait, generally, all the time, even if she meets you, because she doesn't know who you are. She doesn't
That's
know.
fair.
Yeah, that's
fair.
well, that's the point. Yeah, that's the point of the argument I couldn't get past, and why I had to concede to it. So the point of the argument I can't get past is the idea that you, I think, Brian, in the spirit of good faith, I have to say this, would recommend to a girl not to sleep with you. Essentially, to not sleep with you.
Wait, what the fuck?
So we're gonna interpose a different man who's not Brian, but she goes on a date with that man, and within a couple of weeks they're sleeping together, and he says he wants a long-term relationship. Wouldn't the general recommendation from you be not to sleep with that guy if the woman came to you? That's why I think I got to concede the argument.
Let me think this through. I'm different, okay? Andrew, I'm different, okay?
Are you a unique person? with a
Listen,
unique personality?
I'm not like those other guys.
I'm not like
okay?
those other guys.
I'm not like those other guys, okay? First off. And, but the other thing is like, they've already fucked, you know what I mean? They,
Who's
like,
already-
like a lot of, look, the virgins are rare, right? So it's like, okay, bro, they've got a couple bodies. They had a couple one-night stands. It's like, come on, bro. Oh,
But-
now you want me to wait 3 months? Get the fuck out of here, bro. Get the fuck out of here.
Okay.
Look, no, you can change up. You could have smashed 100 dudes in a month. Hold on. Let me finish mine. You could have had sex with 100 dudes in a month within 10 minutes of meeting them, and then 24 hours later, you have a change of heart. I'm waiting till marriage. You can do that as a woman. I would just look at that and be like, damn, that's a bad deal.
Okay, but
I'm good.
For
I'm a
society, though,
pass.
it is a better deal because now instead of choosing to continue with the degenerate behavior and just always be the same person, which is what you'd prefer, she's choosing, okay, I'm going to be a different person now, and I'm going to wait till marriage. That is the better choice for society, to change and to not be the same. And you may not accept that, and that's okay, but that doesn't change that her choice is better to change.
Yeah, but this is kind of a fantasy land we're talking about here.
Okay.
A little bit, maybe. It would be better for it'd be better for society if there wasn't war. We should just end that.
By
we
your
should,
standard-
we should end that silly thing of war. You know, we should end.
So by your
Yeah.
standard, should I just
Continue being a
remain?
salute.
Yeah, I don't think I should.
Yeah, that's a
I don't
tough.
think
That's
so.
where I get. That's where you know, it's tough there.
And even if I knew that no man would ever date me, and not you or anybody else, and I was single, it still wouldn't change
Well,
the fact that I
the
should.
answer is no. The answer is no, you shouldn't. And you know that you shouldn't. And you know that every new D equals one less value point, right? If this is an RPG, you're gaining no new experience. So it's like the answer would have to be no. And the thing is I think I can argue the point from the position that it's not hypocritical. It's not. And it's not in any way a contradiction. It's not. However, I do think that the advice which would be given would, I kind of gave my position there. And so now, you know what happened? You know what just happened right now is that, so I have kind of this golden rule, right? If you're at a bar with a friend and other guys come up and they start a fight, it doesn't really matter if your friend instigated it or not, you get up and you go with your friend, right? That's the way it works. And I feel like this time I didn't get up at the bar, and that's an L for Andrew.
Well, now you have
But
to bring it to an
I had to
assailant.
concede. I don't have anything for this.